Introduction to Flesh and Blood So Cheap, The Triangle Fire and Its Legacy by Albert Marin. The Industrial Revolution was the transition from man-made craftsmanship to mechanized production, which began around the mid-18th century. This transition occurred first in Great Britain and eventually made its way to America. This is a drawing of London during the Industrial Revolution. As you can see, the landscape is made up almost entirely of factories. A number of very significant technological innovations transformed manufacturing and brought about the Industrial Revolution. A mechanized means of producing textiles called the spinning jenny was invented during the mid-18th century. Before the invention of the spinning jenny, textiles were produced using a complicated looming process that was time-consuming and inefficient. The spinning jenny allowed larger quantities of textiles to be produced much more quickly and for less money. The mass production of iron and steel allowed for machinery and products needed in the new industrialized world to be mass-produced. Prior to these new processes, the production and molding of iron and steel was a slow and time-consuming process that only special craftsmen could do. This was the first industrial steel production method. It was invented by Henry Bessemer in the mid-19th century. The late 1800s also saw the birth of perhaps the most famous invention during this time period, the steam engine. The steam engine transformed manufacturing and transportation during the Industrial Revolution. The steam engine powered machinery and allowed for countless new machines to be built. The steam engine fueled the mass production of goods and allowed for them to be transported by trains and steamboats. All of these inventions continued to fuel the innovation and industrialization, and the possibilities in profitability seemed endless. Early 20th century America experienced booming industry as a result of these innovations. Men like John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie capitalized on the growing oil and steel industries and managed to amass inconceivably large fortunes. At the time of his death, John D. Rockefeller had a $350 billion fortune in today's dollars, making him the wealthiest person to ever live. This is the Rockefeller Estate. It is located in the Hudson River Valley of New York. Men like Carnegie and Rockefeller were rarities. In fact, they deviated from the norm entirely. The majority of those living in America during the Industrial Revolution experienced a very different reality.
Booming industry in the United States and the many jobs created by it lured rural Americans and millions of immigrants looking for a better life to northern cities such as New York, Chicago, Lowell, Massachusetts, and Philadelphia. European immigrants escaping poverty and persecution were drawn to the United States and hoped to achieve the American dream. Jewish, Italian, Irish, and Eastern European immigrants were the most common. This is an image of Ellis Island, where about 12 million people were admitted to the United States. The American dream was the notion that the United States was a land of equal and endless opportunity, where with hard work, intelligence, and perseverance, one could go from rags to riches. Men like John D. Rockefeller were promoted as proof of the American dream. The American dream did not become a reality for the vast majority of those who immigrated to the United States during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The reality was grim for many, who worked grueling jobs in inhumane conditions for very little pay. Children were often forced to work in order to contribute to the household income. Children held dangerous jobs, as depicted in the photograph of two boys working in the textile factory. Flesh and Blood So Cheap, The Triangle Fire and Its Legacy will give you an insight into what life was like for immigrants in the United States during the early 20th century, and why tragedies like the Triangle Fire unified workers to bring about widespread change.